Hello, and welcome to Super Lady Hero Hour here on Fanversation. I'm your co-host, Yael Teagle. I'm always joined by my co-host, Kay-B. Hello.
Hello. Thank you to everyone who is joining today's show. We are really looking forward to chatting about all things WandaVision and Batwoman, of course. But I'll let Yell take it away with news.
Yes, before we jump into Batwoman and WandaVision, which we want to talk about, it's time for some headlines. We've been talking about this Moon Knight property and whatever that is for months now. There was rumors of Keanu Reeves, that it was announced that it's going to be Oscar Isaac, and now we have Ethan Hawke coming in to play the villain. This whole thing is
Listen,
wild.
yeah, listen, apparently, allegedly, Oscar Isaac is still actually going to be the titular character, and Ethan Hawke is joining the MCU for the very first time in a villain role. So, apparently they are looking to actually start production on this show in March. We all know that all of these dates are rolling because we are still in a panini. And so, because of that, who knows what's going to happen. But I am excited for Moon Knight. I didn't know anything about Moon Knight prior to this casting, so I kind of did my own background, research for this character. And it's dope. Like, let's introduce them, whenever it's safe and we can. So, we welcome Ethan Hawke with open arms to the MCU, see what type of villain he's gonna be, and go from there. No complaints from me, really.
I'm really excited about the idea of Ethan Hawke joining the MCU. I think that's fun. I think he's been like, I feel like he was on the rise to be like, he was a big star, and then he decided to disappear and do like indies. And so the idea that he's coming back to something this big and popular, I think is the right move. And I'm excited to see what happens. But like this Moon Knight thing, yes, in theory, production starts in March. I don't know. This Moon Knight thing seems to be like rumors here and there the whole time. So I'm not holding my breath. We'll get it in 2024.
Maybe, who knows? They are seemingly kind of fast tracking a lot of things in terms of production. So I do think we'll get it before then. I mean, even if people are going into production this year, they're still looking to put out content by the end of this year, early next year. So I think they're really speeding up the post-production process as well. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that they did not plan, obviously, for a global pandemic. No one could have. But I think that if we're talking the studio who has the most content on hand, it's Netflix. And so, everyone is really trying to kind of catch up to that because Netflix is, releasing a movie a week in the middle of, this scenario that we're in. So I think everyone else is just trying to kind of catch up and then also have material kind of bagged in case we ever encounter something like this or anything else that might bring production to a halt. So we'll see. Titans, for people who are fans of Titans, I swear, like, Yell and I are going to watch this one day. Truly. When that day is going to be, we will not commit to on air, but we will watch it one day. And maybe that day will be soon, because if you're a fan of Titans, Barbara Gordon is joining season 3. They have cast Savannah Welch, as Barbara Gordon, the Gotham City Police Commissioner, who used to also be Batgirl, will be making her debut this season, which should be going into production fairly soon, or is already in production. I'm actually confused on that, but
I mean, it's 2021. Who knows when they're actually going to go into production? They might be for now, today, maybe tomorrow. I think one of the things that's really exciting about Titans is that they keep adding characters we've heard of, names that we've heard of, and their cast is incredible. Like the people that they already have is amazing. So the fact that they're adding someone new to a character that is beloved is a good sign. Them having a third season is a good sign. Maybe we should watch at some point.
I think by next summer, I'll be ready to watch it. I just think that like what's about to happen is we're about to get slammed with all of the fall TV, which is actually winter and will now go through July, it seems. So, you know, once we're done with that, and maybe I'll be like, oh yes, great. Now we can go to the HBO Maxverse, as I'm now going to affectionately call it. And,
No.
you know, maybe we can go there and, you know, I'll watch Titans. And then by then, you know, we'll have some other stuff coming back for seasons as well. So yeah, like, you know, good for you, Titans fans, honestly. And the cast is stacked, and I have no problems with that. So yay. In other news, something that is super surprising to me is that Superman and Lois is getting a 90-minute premiere. Now, listen, I am thrilled to kind of see where this show goes. But I love The Flash, and I've been waiting a long time. And I'm like, we're pushing it back another week. Like, gosh. I mean, in theory, another week means nothing because, you know, hello, we've been doing this for a long time now. But I'm still like, dang, all this for 90 minutes of Superman and Lois? Like, I hope it's the most exhilarating 90 minutes of my life for this supersized premiere. Like, I can't recall the CW ever giving any of their superhero shows a supersized premiere like this. So this is the first 90 minutes.
That I feel like they have, I can't name any, but I feel like they've
not first. I feel like they have never done this for a series premiere. Like, never. Not for any of the superhero shows. Maybe for like a season premiere after they already kind of got that fan base that they were looking for.
Right.
A series premiere, I've never heard them do a 90 minutes. So I'm like, oh, they must be banking a lot on this.
I'm so excited. The new trailer came out. If you want to check it out, it is available on fanversation.com. I really enjoy what they're doing. I think it's interesting. I think it reminds me a lot of Black Lightning, the idea of kids finding out that they have powered parents. I think that's what they're doing, is they're banking on that, you know, family feel. And I think Superman and Lois is going to do pretty well. It might do as many seasons as Black Lightning. I don't foresee it. I'm going to probably end up sticking my foot in my mouth now, but I don't foresee it doing, you know, as many seasons as something as like Arrow and The Flash. But they have a lot of faith in it, apparently, if they're doing a, you know, 2-hour premiere, 90-minute premiere, and pushing The Flash back a week. That said, I'm okay with The Flash being pushed back.
I mean, The Flash is the highest rated show on the network, so they have to be banking a lot on Superman. I mean, honestly, because it is their top show, period. And for good reason, because it's casted so well. But, you know, Superman and Lois, I am looking forward to. I do still think it's really interesting, this idea that they are going to be, they have a significant time jump from the last time that we saw Superman and Lois. So I'm curious to see kind of what that's going to look like, and then also how that's going to tie into every other show, particularly because we know that we're still going to get, you know, a crossover. It's going to be a lot smaller than, you know, the one last year, which was insanely large. But I'm still curious to see how that crossover is going to tie in, because a lot of time has passed on Superman and Lois. And so, you know, one of two things are happening. Either they're going back in time, or, you know, there's another timeline. I don't know what's going to happen. And so I am curious, because they did say that Superman and Lois will play like a big part in this particular crossover, which ironically, when will that happen now? Because I mean, you know, we're so used to getting like winter crossovers. Is this going to be like a June crossover? Like, who knows what's going to happen in terms of our actual timeline. But yeah, I am excited to see the show for sure. I just, you know, it's curious. I'm like, if you're pushing back the top show on the entire network, then they must absolutely adore this pilot. Plus the fact that they supersized it at the last minute must mean that like it was just so incredible that they couldn't, you know, chop it down to 60 minutes. So
yeah, I think
to it.
That's the interesting thing, is that they chose to announce that so late in the game and to supersize it so late in the game. And it makes me think, again, sticking my foot in my mouth, what if they are banking on Flash people not knowing and showing up and being like, well, now I'm watching this.
Oh, I think they know. I mean, I feel like all the Flash fans I know were like, wait, we have to wait another week. You know what I mean? Like it was very apparent to us very early on, like we have to wait another week. And for me, I'm mostly just like, as everyone knows, the CW, like all of their shows actually, the majority of them at least, have decided to just finish out those last episodes from the prior season before moving into what the storylines will be. So essentially all we're getting from these shows anyway are like the wrap-ups that we didn't get for the majority of the shows. So, you know, that's really what the Flash is going to be anyway, like episodes that and I think they had actually filmed the majority of that one, like 80% anyway, before, you know, everything shut down. So we'll see what it looks like, but shout out to Superman and Lois. They're coming. And then in the sad news, Black Lightning is ending.
Yes.
We all know. They dropped their trailer today. It's extraordinary. I'm still sad. Shout out to all of the natural hair. Jefferson's hair looks amazing, and I loved it. And I was mostly like, wow, my faves. And, you know, here they are. It's ending, you know, the Pierce family. I have no idea what this is going to look like for the backdoor pilot. You know, that will be coming a bit later on. You know, we do know that China Anne McClain is done with the series and maybe even acting based on her comments. I don't know, at least for a small period of time. So she will not be returning. So I think even if we get this backdoor pilot, it's probably, you know, safe to say that Jennifer will not be a part of it. But Anissa might be. And so I'm hoping for that. But, you know, final season, anything's fair game. We did see a grave in the trailer, and who is in that, we don't know. But again, death is fair game in the final season. I mean, like, truly, it could be anyone. So,
well, except for Painkiller.
Well, yeah, I mean, because, you know, we do know that Painkiller is giving this. Well, there's a backdoor pilot. It has not been picked up to series, but so we know that Painkiller will survive the end of season 4. We do know that for sure. We cannot say what happens after that, but I mean, I'm so sad, man. I'm so sad. But Jefferson going to therapy, I love it. I love it. I mean, this trailer is so good, and yet I'm so sad. So here we are. Gosh.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to wrapping up this story and seeing how they choose to end it. For those who haven't seen the trailer, this is also available at fanversation.com. Links are below, so check those out. But I think that, you know, I think that it's right to end on an upswing. And I think that there are other CW shows that could have learned from Black Lightning.
I think that we could have used one more season. I'm not a fan of dragging out seasons at all, like at all. And, you know, Yael knows this is why I don't watch SVU. I'm like, guys, so I'm like, we should just do it. So I'm fine with people like shooting their, listen, I know you love it, but I'm like, guys, if I like, seriously. So I'm a fan of shows being like, ooh, we wrapped this up. That's why I'm not mad that Insecure's ending at season 5. I'm like, yay, I love that you know when to end. But I feel like Black Lightning could have given us one more. But I'm still, I mean, I'm obviously not getting one more, so I'm going to have to be okay with this last one. So here we are. Yeah. So we'll see.
Well,
all right, guys. Yes, let's talk about WandaVision. We are going to kick it off with WandaVision. Here is your spoiler warning. You know, if you have not seen WandaVision, shame on you. Oh, well. And we're going to dive into it and all of the spoilers from episode 3. And episode 3 alone, we are not doing more than episode 3. To be quite frank, we have not seen more than episode 3. So this is all you're going to get, but you're going to get all the spoilers in the world. So here's the quick cap for the episode called Now in Color. Wanda's pregnancy fritzes her powers as she and Vision prepare for an accelerated delivery. So, Yael, how did you feel about the episode overall?
This was my least favorite of the first 3 episodes.
What?
I don't know if you know this about me. I hate children. Watching a woman be pregnant is not fun for me. And then a birth and then children. So my least favorite. That said, I see King Kid in the chat is very excited about WandaVision. Yes. Thank you for being here. But this was my least favorite of the three. I feel like not a lot moved forward in terms of everything, which is hilarious because I feel like a lot of people are watching it being like, a lot moved forward, but I'm like, no, there was too much baby.
So this episode actually is the episode that moved the storyline the most out of all three thus far.
That's true, but too much baby.
This one was my favorite episode out of the three. I feel like the first episode is my least favorite, mostly because it just is, it does nothing for the plot. Like 100% it actually does nothing for the plot. Like we the second one moves it a little bit more. And then the third one is actually the one where we're like, oh, okay, now we're starting to understand it a little bit more. So the third one is my favorite, not just because it's in color, but, I do enjoy that it's in color. Because I'm like, oh, yes, give us these beautiful outfits in color. I like that. But also because now we know that Agnes and Herb know what's happening. So like before you weren't entirely sure if they were still in the dark, if they didn't know anything, but now we know that they know something and they want to tell Vision, but they can't. It's something holding them back. And you're like, so what is holding them back exactly? Like, what is going on here? We see, I think the biggest thrill of the entire episode is Geraldine, aka Monica. We know she's Monica, but we still gonna call her Geraldine in this universe. Geraldine is a part of SWORD and it's confirmed, and Wanda figures it out and basically boots her right on out of her, safety net. Because again, we've kind of determined that this scenario, this realm is Wanda's grieving, like her special place to deal with the grief of Vision's death. And she boots her right on out. Like, girl, no, you got to go because you're disrupting the peace. And I just gave birth to these twins. How, we still don't know, because Vision, what? And two, who is Vision cooking all this food for? That's also the question I had this episode. He's making like 1 million hot dogs. And I was like, Vision, you don't eat food. And also, what is happening? So, I don't get it. But yes, she does. I will say, to King Kid's point, she does safely kick her out. But she's like, girl, you got to go. You got to go. So this moved the storyline the most. And I'm glad the twins are here because they're actually very important to the comics.
I'm going to question some things that you said. Because Geraldine, although we know is Monica, is not confirmed. Her being part of SWORD is not confirmed. The fact that she gets kicked out, that Wanda kicks her out, not confirmed. Nothing is confirmed yet.
I mean, it's pretty safe to say that when Geraldine landed and when we saw her, that was the exact same power source that Wanda uses, that we've seen her before move somebody through whatever. And also, SWORD is actually confirmed because if you read the comics, so it's like all these things are like, you gotta know.
In the show, it is not confirmed.
Listen,
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying, as a viewer who is not reading the comics, who is just a viewer, I'm going based on solely facts that have been given to us.
Well, we definitely saw Wanda spark.
Yes,
that definitely happened when Geraldine. So we'll just keep calling her Geraldine from now, even though even though it actually has already been revealed by the team that she will be Monica. But that's okay.
Yeah,
so Geraldine in this scenario, even though Geraldine, she was moved with Wanda Spark. So I was like, that pretty much is like, she booted her out of her realm, whatever this is that she's using to protect herself and her grief. But yes, correct. She has not been called Monica yet, so Geraldine got booted. And
at this point, SWORD has not been addressed or
so SWORD has revealed. SWORD has been revealed,
not to a viewer.
It has been. So we have seen in episode 2, we saw the man in the suit who works for Sword. And remember, only she saw him though. So she kept like trying to get Vision's attention, but Vision didn't notice. So we saw him, and then we saw the helicopter, beekeeper. And then we saw the beekeeper. We saw the helicopter. We saw Geraldine's necklace. And then there's one other thing that we saw that I can't remember. And I feel like it was in the first episode, because the helicopter's is episode 2. And so was the beekeeper's episode 2 as well. I feel like it's in episode 1, but I can't remember what it is. But we've seen it like about 4 times now, I believe.
Sure. I'm not saying, here's what I'm saying. As a viewer, at no point has the word, monitor screen.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Like, we've seen it. Thank you.
Yes, we've seen it. And as a viewer who may not be aware of what Sword is, at no point has it been, if no one has said it out loud on the show, then we don't know it, if that makes sense. Right? Like
you're saying we don't know the background of the organization quite yet.
Right. And we don't know what their intention is, and whether, I mean, we know because we know, but we don't know if they are the good guys or the bad guys. At this point, Wanda believes that they are probably the bad guys.
Right, and that's true. But Sword could also, to Marvel's point, Sword could function like S.H.I.E.L.D., which technically it does, but just in space, right? So
sure,
there could be people who have hidden agendas that are not good. There could be people that have agendas that are good, like an organization really is only as good as its workers as well. And so their mission might be one thing, but you could still have certain people from various backgrounds who are not there for the best reasons. So we know that Wanda is just firmly trying to protect herself and her own interests. And we know that, Agnes and Herb are allowed in this scenario. Geraldine is allowed in this scenario. We still don't know why Herb and Agnes are aware and they're conscious and what that means. If you read the comics, you do, particularly with Agnes. But you don't know necessarily kind of what that means just yet for Wanda. The significance of the twins if you also read the comics. And so, how key they are to a lot of different things, in the future. But again, this episode was still my favorite. I mean, like, honestly, out of all of them, because it moved the plot along. It really is the only episode to do so, quite frankly. And so now it's like, okay, we can get going. Like, this was the episode that I watched and I was like, oh, great. I believe in the vision of the show. Because before it was just like, I enjoy sitcoms. Yes, I do. I love them. But what does this sitcom have to do with the plot? Like, I was like, please tell me more. Nothing? Okay. So now I'm like, okay, we can get going and we can dive in. Because again, we said this last week, but for this to be the Kickstarter of Phase 4, I needed to really be the Kickstarter of Phase 4. And I've trusted Kevin Feige, in the past. And I do think the sitcom is entertaining. And I think that the actors are doing a great job, particularly with their comedic timing. But give me more plot points. Give me more plot points. That's just going to be how I am. So.
Yeah. So what would you rate this episode on a scale from poop to kittens or a spoon in between?
So this one for me is a kitten. I know that you don't like it, but I enjoyed this episode tremendously. I mean, listen, I think that it's a risk. It's always a risk, but it's a huge risk because this is the first TV series from Marvel Studios. So it's already going to be a heavier lift than a film, to be quite honest, because you need to make this cohesive, and you need to make it flow, and you need to make sure that the plot is truly thickening. And I feel like that's what we got in this particular episode. I thought it was really, really good in the sense that it's giving all of us fans kind of what we hoped. Well, I can speak for myself, what I hoped I would have gotten in the first 2. And then I didn't. So I was like, darn it. But then the third one came along and I was like, restore my faith in humanity. So how do you feel? How would you rate this episode?
So I'm going to go with a spoon because it was my least favorite. I still loved it. I think that the blatant homage to Brady Bunch was very fun. Like not the least subtle thing I've ever seen. So I really enjoyed that. I did. There were too many babies, but it was fun. And yes, it did move us forward, which I do like. So I didn't hate it, but it's not a kitten. So spoon.
Well, shout out to the doctor who I adore, because he starts his morning into the house to confirm that she is indeed pregnant and is about 4 months. And then, literally 3 hours later comes back to deliver 2 babies and asks not a single question as to how he was just there 3 hours prior and she was only 4 months, and then comes back, missing his vacation in Bermuda, which I've been to Bermuda and it's beautiful and I would never miss it. So honestly, he missed his vacation to Bermuda to deliver twins that were supposed to be another 5 months away and still asked not a single question. Boy, an interesting character. Also, the misogyny is quite thick with the doctor as well. He made a lot of comments and I was like, ooh, truly, sir, truly, you would be such a good nurse. She looked at him like, or a doctor. I mean, because I did just deliver this baby, but sure,
right.
That.
Yes.
Let's
talk about our predictions.
Going to happen in episode 4. Yeah, because you did not like this episode. So, I mean, you didn't hate it, but you didn't like it. So what do you hope that we find out in episode 4? Like, what will, kind of reel you back in?
I mean, less children, but so my original prediction was that we were stuck in her head. But my prediction has changed. And I do see, and again, as a non-comic reader, I see that the children, there's something about, not just about the fact that she had children in this whatever place we're in, and that Vision can't impregnate a woman. Not that. But if you remember in episode 2, they were doing the event for the children. And there's this, now we have actual children. And I think that there's something like somebody wants her offspring because her offspring can do something. So that's where my head is at right now, that she is kind of, if anybody's seen Doctor Who, that, Amy at some point is taken captive and doesn't really know where she is and gives birth and then is like, wait, I have a baby and I was taken. So I think that like Wanda might be held captive somewhere to produce offspring. That's where my head's at. As for what I hope answers. I hope everything that people are saying on the internet, all of these little bits that anyone who knows what's going on has put together, I want it to be confirmed. That's what I want. What about you?
Yeah, I still think we're in space. I mean, I don't think that this saga takes place on Earth. I have not from the beginning. I literally tell everyone who will listen that I don't think this takes place on Earth. And then everyone says the same thing. Oh my God, I didn't think about that. That's true. Sword. Space. That I was like, yes, we don't have to be on Earth for this. And I don't think that we are. So there's that. Yeah. What do I hope? So I hope that next episode, Geraldine's true identity will be revealed as Monica. The work that she's doing with Sword will be revealed. And I hope that we just get kind of more nuggets as to, where this is headed. I also hope that, we bring Vision into the fold and he also gets the answers that he's seeking, because now, which, technically Vision is dead, technically. But I am hoping that we get some sort of, that Vision gets some sort of answers as well in this state that he is in, because he is getting more and more suspicious, and it's getting harder and harder for Vision to be able to even control and conceal his true identity, because he's having a hard time really adjusting to the normalcy of Westview. and you know, kind of what this town is providing. And so he's always worried. And so even in this episode, when she gives birth to Tommy first, which honestly, that bit was hilarious, going back and forth about the name, and every time she said Tommy, he said Billy. But when Tommy is born, you know, she's like, don't you want to meet your son in your true form? And he's like, oh, can I? Like, is this, you know, like, is it safe? So he's even having a hard time, I think, you know, kind of determining what's real and what's not, and maintaining a sense of normalcy in this town. So I'm hoping that we get more of that and more understanding from that as well. Also, you know, because Vision's dead, I don't know what's going to happen with Vision post this show. Like, you know what I mean? Since technically he's dead, and this is I don't know what's going to happen with that. And where we're going to see this going. Because I am, from a comics perspective, have not read a ton about Vision, like specifically in his character arc. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, we're going to find out on Friday. So I guess we're going to find out on Friday what happens. Truly.
Yes. Well, let's move it along over to Batwoman now. Again, spoilers for Batwoman. Here's the quick cap for prior criminal history. Ryan Wilder is back to facing the daily challenges of life as herself. Alice has a new devious plan to get the attention of both Gotham and Sophia. Ryan comes face to face with Alice for the first time. Whoo, what an episode.
I love it. I love this season. I do.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It feels like they're letting Alice, like, it feels like what happened when they finally let Legends of Tomorrow do what they wanted to do and like go wild. They're like, okay, Alice is nuts. Let her go wild. Like, let's do this. And I'm really enjoying seeing that, and everyone else just having to like work in that reality.
I have to shout out the creative team of Batwoman, because again, it's really hard to step into shoes that are already established, not just as an actor, but honestly, even in creating a show and having to pivot and having to do it. But the small details that they've kind of plopped in for Ryan, and how, you know, she has always had this kind of parallel connection to Kate, I actually really enjoy how they're using Ryan's background to be like, instead of, I mean, obviously, like, the criminal justice system needs to be completely reformed in general because it's trash. And we see that with Ryan. We see how, like, Ryan is a product of the system, but they're even using that. And they're like, you know what? Why can't this history be something that, like, she in turn uses to help her fight crime as Batwoman? Like, it's a whole different vibe this season, but I like really like where it's going. I also like that, like, they made it that she and Sophie actually already knew each other from the judicial, like, from her criminal past. I was like, oh, yeah, that's actually smart. I would have never thought that they would, like, I would have never thought to write that, but I think that was the smart thing to do in this series, because it's not like we have to introduce them to each other in this very odd way. It's like, no, you know. And it also shows that, like, Sophie has blood on her hands as a police officer too, you know, in terms of, like, trying to take Ryan down for crimes that she didn't commit over and over and over again. And we've seen that. So I'm like, dang it, this episode was so good. Like, they're doing a really good job. Like, Javicia is killing it. I don't have anything else to say. I feel like everyone else too is killing it. Everyone else, like, leveled up, like freaking Luke, Mary, like, I don't know. It feels like everyone is like, I don't know. It feels like a completely different show in a lot of ways, in tone and in performances. Like, they are, like, truly killing it. Like, this is honestly the show that I hoped it would be in season 1. And like, just in terms of tone and structure and, like, everything, this is actually this is what I wanted last season. So it feels good to be here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that this is really, like, they've gotten where they need to be. I would say just one little tweak, they can get rid of the dad and the crows. Like, we don't need this organization. Like, put Sophie back, like put her back in the police, and like, you know, we don't need this specific organization. It feels unnecessary, and it feels too tied to Kate. So I think it's unnecessary. That said, everything else I'm loving. I agree that it's nice that they're tying her back into it. I do like I completely forgot about the like journaling to Bruce, and the fact that she started with Dear Kate. I was like, yes, I'm here. I'm in. This is what I want. I'm worried that Ryan, the character, is going to be shipped with Sophie. I just feel like
I told you how I feel about it.
I feel like it's gonna happen.
I don't know that it's gonna happen now necessarily. So last week I actually said I wanted it to happen, but that was actually before we knew how they would be introduced, because they had not been introduced to each other. And for me, it was, again, I was saying, you know, we very rarely get to kind of see Black love in a queer relationship on screen. So I, you know, would 100% support that. But now that we know, you know, about this past history of, you know, basically her being arrested by Sophie, I mean, essentially that's what it is. I don't think that they're going to go down the path of shipping them. I don't think they're going to, because of that history. It just becomes muddled, and it becomes a little too complicated. I do think that they can eventually build a friendship and trust, but I honestly don't think they could build a friendship until the end of this season, like maybe the beginning of season 3. You know, I just think that, like, I honestly think before they do that, Soph will probably get back together with Pennyworth. Like,
well, I think that Batwoman and Sophie will become like they will have a mutual respect for each other. I just, in that scene, I was like, oh God, I hope they don't end up being a like enemies to lovers trope, because I hate that. But also it just, like you said, there is a muddy past, and I think that it just would be terrible. And honestly, I don't put past the CW to do it in the future, to be like, now we're together, and forget that at some point there was this other issue.
I mean, listen, you know, fan service is a real thing, particularly with these CW superhero shows, for sure. I mean, it is 100% the reason why you know, that relationship in Arrow became canon, is because really fans on Twitter were like, we need to see Oliver and Felicity, the end. Like, and so, I mean, it truly was that. So I'm not saying fan service does not get their way in the CW verse, because it has happened before. You know, at least with like Barry and Iris, it is canon, and we always knew that it would get there. So it's like, okay, like, to be quite frank, I actually forgot about Eddie. Yeah, he just popped in my head right now. I was like, oh my God, she was not engaged. I hate when she's like, he was my fiance. He actually never proposed because he died first, but it's okay. I mean, it's true, but he was your boyfriend, girl. But okay, she did have, you know, he was intending on proposing, but girl, he never did, really, because he, you know, he did not make it. So fine. But, you know, the CW does have a history. But I agree in the sense that, like, now that I know their backstory, I don't want that. But again, the most shocking thing for this episode to me was that they were not lying last episode. Like, I thought that Kate's dad and Sophie were lying about not knowing that she was Batwoman. I did. I thought that they were just trying to save face with each other. But turns out they really didn't know. And I was like, oh, I thought that was...
It's funny because I thought that we were going to go back to Kate's father being like, she wasn't bad. Like, I thought, I was told and I believed it, but look, it's not true.
I really thought that he was lying. I thought he knew, but this episode proved that they truly did not know. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess. It was the most obvious thing on earth. So, but sure.
Yeah. Sophie's anger about that was very obnoxious, honestly.
She was upset. They both were. It was interesting. And also shout out to Mary, because she's actually a terrible liar. So the fact that her father believed her, I was like, this doesn't, like, she's not even looking you in the eye, to be quite honest. And he's like, so you didn't know? She's like, oh, come on, Dad. And I'm like, she has not looked you in the eye this entire time. And yet you're like, she's telling me the truth.
All right. Where do you place this episode on a scale from poop to kittens?
Oh, this is going to be a kitten for me. Listen, I really enjoyed this episode. Again, I love that every episode we're getting more of Ryan's background and tying that in. I will say last week, you predicted that this episode she would become Batwoman. I said, no, it's way too soon. And I guess technically we were both right because she only stepped into Batwoman to trick, that. And then at the end was like, okay, no, really, I want to be Batwoman. And I was like, girl, now give yourself 2 more weeks or something to like figure it out. But I knew once she put those bats on the bus and the woman thanked her, I was like, she's all in. Like, I was like, never mind. She's going to be Batwoman. This is it. So here we are. So how did you feel about the episode ratings wise?
I'm going to agree. It was also a kitten. I really enjoyed it this season so far. I mean, it's only 2 episodes, but like, I'm in. This is what I wanted. It got better. It's so good. I think they've let them be wacky. They've let Alice be wacky. I also like that we're looking at other villains that are not Alice. I think that's a nice movement away from Alice always being the big bad. But I also loved the idea that they had bats attack people. Like, what a silly, dumb way to go.
I love that, Ryan is Batwoman and is terrified and hates bats. The irony. That's what I love. I also, to your point, the one point of contention I'm going to have with this show, and I know it, is this Alice scenario as like the long-term villain. Listen, I love the Flash, but like Reverse Flash always being, kind of the villain for everything, the central villain, which yes, Reverse Flash is in the comics. Like I get it. Like he's a very prevalent villain speedster. But there are other villains. And so it's always so hard because on one hand, I feel like when they kick things off and they started with Arrow and then they moved to the Flash, they already had this formula where you had your consistent big bad. And really, I kind of feel like Oliver's has always been the island in an odd way. You know what I mean? Like it's like the island is big bad. But they also had smaller villains every week. It's interesting because on Batwoman, they're not necessarily smaller villains every week thus far. It's just Alice presenting a new problem. And I wonder how long that's going to last. And so we know that Sapia is worse than Alice, according to Alice, right? But we haven't seen Sapia be worse than Alice. You know what I mean? I don't want it to get stale to the point where we're like, okay, is it just going to be the Alice show?
I agree. I totally agree.
And Ryan brought up a good point. Alice is still alive and she should have been dead a long time ago. Facts. I mean, like that is the truth. Like, so.
No, I'm totally with you. And I think one of the things that Flash did well, as much as Eobard keeps coming back, is that some seasons we have a half season where it's a different villain. And sometimes they're not a speedster. So like if we could not always have Alice, but also not always have just someone different each week, because then it's like, just leave town. So
why are you here?
I lost you.
No. I was saying it becomes one of those things where it's like, well, why do you live here? Because every week it's like, just seriously move. Like, what is this?
Exactly. So I would say, give me a different big bad over the course of a few episodes at a time, and don't have them always be working for Alice.
Alice. Oh, good old Alice. Yeah. So what
Any
do you hope
predictions
is
you
going
want
to
to
happen?
add?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't predict anything about this show. I mean, maybe next week we get to see Safia, or the not just Tatiana, who is basically Safia's henchwoman. I feel like, maybe we can see something else. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. It's because everything is about Alice that I truly don't know. And with Alice now killing Mouse, which was truly her last connection to humanity, Alice is becoming a bit more unstable. And so I just don't know what that's going to look like as we move forward. Any predictions on your end?
I think that Alice will find a new connection to humanity with Mary, because she kind of points out that like they're all they got. And so I hope that goes somewhere. But yeah, I also hope that the hijinks get wackier. I think that like attacking the bat or having bats attack and then take them out with a bus is really fun. So let's do more of that.
I love that, I love that Luke was forced to trust her in that moment. I think Luke does not trust easily, especially when it comes to his beloved bat suit and all of his tech. Honestly, he's like, why should I trust you with this? And, he doesn't necessarily trust Ryan yet because trust is earned. But in that moment, he just had to trust her because, one, he wasn't moving fast enough. And two, she had an idea on the fly that was kind of like, all right, let's try this. So yeah, shout out to that, and let's see what happens. But I do think the team is getting stronger, and I love that. So in terms of the Woman Performer of the Week, who is it for you this week, Yael? I feel like you maybe had a hard time picking this.
I had such a hard time. I wanted to go with Wanda because like she had to go through 9 months of pregnancy in 20 minutes. So I wanted to give it to Elizabeth Olsen, but also that was unpleasant. So I think Mary was my performer of the week. I feel like her character has grown so much, and like having to balance this week lying to her stepfather about knowing about Batwoman, having her also deal with the medical emergency that killed her mom. I think all of that Mary was the performer of the week. Yeah. What do you think? Who was your performer of the week?
Yeah, my performer of the week is actually going to go to Alice, ironically, because, like I just said, I don't want it to always be the Alice show, but I do think that Rachel Scarston, who portrays Alice, formerly Beth Kane, did a fantastic job. It was something about the delivery of her lines this week and the things that she said that I was laughing like audibly, like, what is happening with you, girl? Like, it was just so crazy. And I think that, Alice Rachel as Alice is doing a really good job, and just being able to kind of switch, and you never know if you can trust her. And, rule of thumb is probably don't, but, even her interactions with little Pennyworth, Julia, and then going from, that to being semi-vulnerable with Mary, but you can't even really trust that, to, going head to head with Ryan in a fight, to always, kind of shading her father in any scenario that she has. I was like, yes. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Rachel as Alice, and obviously honorable mention for me will always go to Javicia because I do think that she is killing it. Honorable mention as well will definitely Mary killed Mary's character this episode. Yes, to your point, was fabulous as well. But yeah, so for sure. So tell me about who had the best style for you this week.
Okay, so this week, I'm gonna go with Geraldine in the blue vest over the white blouse, because I used to wear a white, like kind of a crocheted vest that was my mother's from the 70s. And I was like, ooh, I gotta find that. I used to wear that all the time. This style is so good. And I was like, damn, I want that style to come back. So Geraldine won my style icon of the week.
I mean, listen, Geraldine's hair is always fire. I actually preferred Geraldine's looks from episode 2, but I know that Geraldine will be serving more looks as she steps into being Monica and leaves Geraldine in the dust. I don't care. The outfits are going to get better. Now, for me, I had a two-way tie between that faux fur coat that Wanda manifests while having a contraction and even shocks herself because she was like, ooh, like, this is luxurious. Like, yes. I was like, yes, iconic for sure. And then it's a two-way tie between that and then Mary's final look from Batwoman, which quite frankly, I'm not entirely sure if it was a dress or a shirt and a skirt, but it was real cute and it had a lot of gold buttons on the front. And I was like, yes to this.
It was like the sleeveless olive thing with the I think it was a jumpsuit.
I don't even know, honey, but it was cute. I was like, yes. I was like, this outfit is bomb. I love it. It's everything. And so I would 100% wear it. Plus that faux fur coat. I mean, I was like, I'll wear all of these things. Yes. So those I am allowed to have a tie because they were both adorable. All right. So
I almost gave it to all of the coats. I almost was like that whole sequence of coats.
The coats. And also what I love though, what I did actually love about the episode was how they made fun of how ridiculous shows are when women are pregnant and trying to hide it. Because when she had that bowl of fruit and then she had this coat and Geraldine's like, girl, it's 75 degrees outside. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, this is exactly how it is on television shows. Like, I mean, you know, the way that they pan, ridiculous, you know, the way that, you know, the woman will only be sitting for the entire episode and you're like, okay. And then, you know, they'll have like one thing in front of it. Also, shout out to Geraldine's outfit because those, she had pelicans on her pants, and that was like the bird that
fish. She had fish on the pants.
Fish, yes. And then the pelican was like, "Oh, are these fish real?" And I was like, "Yes." Shout out to that because that whole pelican scenario was weird. But also, she didn't know what to do because she was having 37 kids at one time. So, what was your WTF moment of the week? To be fair, there weren't like a ton, but.
So my first like real WTF moment of the week was the glitch with when Vision is like something's off and then it resets and he's like, no, everything's fine. And everybody watching TV went, wait, did the show just glitch? Did they just what just happened? We were like, what just happened? Our internet went out. So that was my WTF moment. The other tiny little moment is Wanda finally remembers that she had a brother. She finally remembers that her brother, Pietro, is dead and did not choose to name one of her boys Peter. Excuse me? After her dead brother? I mean, Pietro would have been fine also, but Peter, name your kid Peter. Your brother's dead.
Well, to be fair, she didn't remember that he was dead when she gave birth and they had already named the kids. To be fair, she didn't remember. She didn't remember until after they named him. They get it. So it's like, to be fair, she wasn't thinking about her twin brother because she didn't recall having one. So that's something
she did. Name your kid after your dead brother.
And so, but sometimes people don't want to do that though. I mean, you know, like in grief, they're like, I don't necessarily want to name my kid after the person that died. Sometimes they do middle names, you know, maybe
it just didn't occur to her, and that
maybe
is my
it's Tommy Peter. Maybe it's Tommy Peter.
Thank you. I'll take it.
You know,
what was your WTF moment?
The bats, because I don't like bats either. And I mean, I'm from a state where, you know, we do actually have a lot of bats in theirs.
Oh.
So when I would go to Austin, God, there'd just be so many bats. And I would be like, I can't even manage this. So, because first you think it's a regular bird and then you're like, this is a bat. And so it's terrifying. So when that bat shot up out of Mouse's dead body out of nowhere, first off, for me, the best part was how Luke didn't care. Like literally he did not care. He was not shocked. His face was like, and I was like, so you're just not, I mean, like, just okay. And meanwhile, Ryan is freaking out because it's like, well, first off, something is just moving in this carcass. that Mary just confirmed was dead. And then the way the bat just popped out. Also, I'm like, that bat spent that entire time trying to figure out how to puncture the tissue to get out. And I was just like, this is gross. Like, honestly, it was so gross to me. So that was my WTF moment. I was like, no. And even though clearly in the first 30 seconds of the show, she said, like, we knew she was going to put a bat in him. I mean, that was very clear in the very first moments of the show. But I don't know. It's very different from, being told one thing and then experiencing it. And I was like, oh no, like I knew it was a bat in there, but still when it came out, I was like, no, thank you. So here we are. Never again.
Well, on that note, thank you so much to everyone who has joined us live. King Kid in the chat, thank you for being here. We appreciate all of your thoughts and feedback. Anyone else who's watching live, thank you for being here. But until next week, KB, where can everyone keep up with you? And what are you up to this week?
Yeah, follow me, social media, again, just Twitter and Instagram. And it is The Lady KB, TheLadyKayB. You can follow me for any updates on Twitter about what I'm covering. If I have any interviews dropping, you'll find out there, like who knows what's going to happen. Who knows? But what I do know is if you would like to listen to the Color Grade Pod, we do have new episodes that drop on Fridays. You can listen to our episode from this past week where I have a one-on-one conversation with actress Taylor Page about her turn in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And she is the star of Zola Film, which I saw exactly 1 year ago today at Sundance. And it is not out yet because Panorama. So when you guys see her in Zola, though, you're going to flip out because it is an astounding film. And we talk about just so much more. She was an absolute delight. And this Friday, there will be an all-new episode. And you will just have to listen to find out what we chat about then. So, Yael, this week, where are you? What are you up to? What are you playing? And where can people find you?
I am everywhere at Yael Teagle. That's YAELTYGIEL. I'm also on TikTok now. So check that out. I literally just did a video before this on why I think Captain Marvel is the best film in the MCU. So if you disagree, go and give that video some hate. But check that out. I don't know what I'm playing yet, but you can find me on twitch.tv/Yael Teagle. And we will see you next week for more Super Lady Hero Hour. Bye, everybody.
Bye.